The Song of Ice and Fire, two ultimate forces in eternal battle, fighting for dominion over an entire world. The ongoing fugue between these two voices remains the driving force in Martin's most successful work, and this Song of Ice and Fire can explain the causes of the seasons, a look at the magical endgame of the winds of winter and a dream of spring, and the eternal battle for life itself. Essentially, given the themes and ongoing allusions in ASOIAF, ice seems to be alive, or capable of some minor form of sentience in specific instances. This is not to argue that all life forms a massive hive mind or cunning life form, merely that there is a form of ice-based magic and power, complementing R'hllor and the fire-based magic systems we see all throughout Planetos. Most of this is already self-evident, with White Walkers and their undead wights, as well as haunting examples of ice magic such as the wall defends itself. Additionally, we see mythical or semi-fantastical beasts, such as white ravens or direwolves, which associate with ice thematically. However, there are a few underdeveloped aspects to this theory that I am going to discuss, such as the mythical ice dragons, ice spiders, and the possibility of a singular great other. Let's start with the White Walkers, the most obvious example of an ice-based life form. Like many other mythical cryptids throughout ASOIAF I've been covering, much of the world remains speculative of their contemporary existence, but we as readers clearly know better. For how formidable of a threat the White Walkers pose, as well as the dramatic introduction they received in the first few pages of A Game of Thrones, we actually know surprisingly little about the others themselves. They are capable of some ice-rattling speech, shaping and crafting ice, since they wear armor and possess swords which are harder than the swords of the Night's Watch, and an understanding of basic combat and battle tactics. All of these factors suggest some form of higher societal structure, as well as some level of sentience. The fact that they talk to each other as well makes it clear to me that they aren't part of some telepathic hive mind or something. It seems to be that the White Walkers are not as numerous as humans, as they appear to be quite rare and sparse. They are moving south, which suggests one of two things. They are expanding and require additional land or humans to raise as wights, or they are on orders or possibly fleeing something to their north. Now both of these theories have their own merits, and both could be true to some extent, but the theory that the others are fleeing or working for a greater evil to their north is suggested first, in an early Bran chapter, where the three-eyed crow shows him something at the northern extreme of Planetos, something so unthinkable and unspeakable it convinces Bran that he has no other choice but to follow the three-eyed crow. Many simply assume that this must be the others, or their leader, or the like, but Bran's description makes it clear that this threat is much worse than the others, and much further north, as what he sees is something described as the heart of always winter. Conveniently, Bran doesn't tell us anything else, almost like Martin wants to keep narrative secrets. But we actually do get one solid explanation from Melisandre, as well as the greater religion of R'hllor as a whole. The Great Other is the thematic complement to R'hllor, their devil. The Great Other is the god of cold, darkness, ice, and death. The Great Other has many nicknames, but its true name is never spoken. In fact, Melisandre believes any mortal who so much as looks at the Great Other would immediately die. As Martin has recently leaned more into the Lovecraftian angle, with the literally lifted from Lovecraft Deep Ones and Old Ones of the Seas of Planetos, and we have already explored the theory that the drowned god is actually a Cthulhu-like Great Old One, a god of darkness and ice so powerful a mere glance would kill a human does not seem to be outside the realm of plausibility in ASOIAF. In fact, it almost makes thematic sense. The story is about two great threats of ice and fire. We have countless examples of many forms of fire magic, be R'hllor real or not, some of which can raise the dead, and countless of others which command great power. Now, regardless of religious truth in ASOIAF, it is clear that fire and fire magic systems are capable of some level of sentience, at least to further its own agenda, namely self-proliferation. Ice symbolically has the opposite. We have seen various forms of ice magic already, some of which are able to raise the dead and command great power. Of course, there is some of embodiment of ice in the form of a god or some sentient being that also focuses on self-proliferation. These two are the central battle of ASOIAF, and are complementary. The fire god commands dragons, fire lions, wildfire, fire wights, and so many other phenomenon, whereas the ice god commands ice dragons, white walkers, the wights, and the overwhelming, compelling force of nature. In fact, the ongoing battle between ice and fire, be it two Lovecraftian gods fighting over dominion, or merely two natural forces fighting to self-proliferate, this is the best explanation for the cause of the seasons. They give and pull in a never-ending and asymmetrical waltz of two unstoppable forces, composing the song of ice and fire. We know the seasons are magical, not scientific, and follow no pattern. Thematically, textually, magically, and based on the title of the series itself, the Song of Ice and Fire is clearly the cause of the abnormal seasons in ASOIAF. But shifting focus back to the others, the second theory on why they are moving south is that they require additional land or human life. This theory is also certainly true to some extent, as we see both Craster and the Night's King sacrifice children to the others, both practices which have now stopped. The others appear to require young human life for some unknown reason. Many speculate for reproduction, as this seems likely. Interestingly, it is also said that Craster gives his children to the demons, and demons are elsewhere described as forces of darkness. This theory is speculative, but this description makes it appear that demonkind as a whole, which is found all throughout the world of ice and fire, are all servants to the Great Other, and the others are merely a type of demon. This is believed by many lorists. Again, this is very speculative, because we have few descriptions of demons, none of which really match the others directly. Demons as a whole are very weird, perhaps only an odd tell based on greater threats and real monsters. Maybe they are a class which comprises many monsters, or possibly they are their own thing. It is yet to be made clear. Just like the demonic others can animate wights, giving a body a vessel for some form of sentience, we see other examples of ice magic raising living beings. Ice dragons are great others' counterparts to fire dragons, which roam throughout the Shivering Sea as well as north of the Wall. Ice dragons are much larger than the dragons of Valyria, which in turn are much larger than any dragons we see the Targaryens use, with the average Valyrian dragon being Balerion's size or larger. Ice dragons breathe supernaturally cold breath, capable of freezing and destroying nearly anything, similar to its fire counterpart. Just like the fire counterpart, the source of this magical breath is unknown. As an interesting side note, Martin published a book in 1980 titled The Ice Dragon, which many fans, and publishers even, speculate is set in Planetos, though Martin himself has denied this theory. It is important to understand that ice dragons are not undead dragons, or dragons raised by the others, a common misconception in the fandom. Ice dragons are distinct, larger, and described as being made of living ice. Just as dragons are fire made flesh, ice dragons are ice made life. There is another mythical beast which is comprised of living ice, the fabled ice spiders. Little is known about these, but ice spiders are the mounts which others ride into battle, and are quite large and powerful. Now, because we know so little, there are a lot of different theories on what ice spiders might actually be. Cap's ice spiders is a wonderful little theory which posits that ice spiders may not be unique life forms, but instead abominations cobbled together from body parts of deceased humans. However, considering the descriptions we see of ice spiders in the text, in addition to the understanding of ice magic so far, it appears that ice spiders are a form of life similar to ice dragons, an embodiment of ice, a vessel for sentience, as ice magic is given physical form. So ice dragons and giant ice spiders are the two cryptids we see made of living ice, but there is some other ice-based thing which seems to exhibit some level of sentience and self-preservation. The Wall. Famously, the Wall defends itself, and we see this clearly happen on several occasions, where the Wall acts in ways favorable to cause what could not be attributed to mere chance or coincidence. Melisandre and others also attest to the fact that the Wall is magical, which is honestly not surprising, and John occasionally thinks of the Wall as having its own agenda, where it marks the end of the world, even remarking once that it seems alive. I'm not saying the wall is an intelligent living organism, nor that John's anthropomorphizing of the wall insinuates that it is alive, merely pointing out what the text has already shown us, namely that the wall is capable of some form of magical functions, which it can selectively and autonomously carry out to further its own goals. In fact, the Sweet Robin fanfiction prologue highlights an interesting problem with the wall, one which can be explained by understanding the wall as a semi-sentient magical construct capable of self-preservation. The wall should be morphing, changing shape. Particularly, with the long summers, the wall should evaporate or sublimate in places, and replacing precipitation would disproportionately fill in the bottom part of the wall. This effect would be slow, but say, if the wall was on an Earth-equivalent latitude, the wall should slowly reduce in height and increase in width. Over the course of thousands of years, which the wall has been standing for, the ice would slowly transform into a flat glacier. Additionally, local climates across many miles of the wall would be different, and wind patterns would erode or expand certain areas. But again, the wall holds its shape. This is for the reasons which we have already explored. The wall is capable of ice magic, bending and manipulating ice, which it carries out for self-preservation. This isn't to suggest that all ice or snow in the song is semi-sentient or capable of magic, but some of it demonstrably is. Just like many fires carry visions or magical power, be it wildfire, firebenders, or that weird voice Varys hears in the fire that causes him to hate magic, or any of the other countless demonstrations of fire magic, it appears snows may be able to carry some similar powers. Both Bran and Jon see visions in thick snows, and it appears that Bran's abilities are enhanced by exposure to ice in the snows. Similar to the visions Melisandre sees in her flames, the snows, particularly those further north, may carry some vision or foreshadowing abilities. This gives an additional layer to Jon's bastard surname, as well as its continuing use by Mormont's Raven. Snow means so much more if it can be used as a magical medium. In fact, understanding the relationship with direwolves as a form of ice magic gives additional understanding to the Stark's relation to direwolves, as well as warging as a whole. Direwolves are directly linked with the snows as well, as the vitality of these magical wolves is linked with their proximity to the northern ice front. They are almost exclusively seen north of the wall, and their descent south corresponds with the turning of the seasons, or the Great Other's slow progression. Most wargs are only seen in the north, and the most powerful wargs we see are always in snowier environments. In fact, the two Stark girls immediately lose their direwolf shortly after they go south, Lady being killed and Nymeria being forced away. Similarly, Robb immediately loses his direwolf once he begins moving south. On the contrary, Bran, Rickon, and Jon all continue to become more powerful wargs as they move further north, strengthening the ties and the presence of the wolves. What other magical beasts do we see that become more powerful or commonplace the further north we go? Well, giants also fulfill this criteria, in fact only being seen north of the wall in the song. Understandably, giants are also trying to further the agenda of ice, frequently trying to cross south of the wall, and the one that is successful, one, kills a Queensman shortly after transiting. The Queensmen are radical Rulorists, dedicated to the god of fire, and the giants are ice-based, in service to the Great Other, so it only makes sense that the two would harbor animosity towards each other, even if subconsciously. Giants are also heavily linked towards the Horn of Winter. Now, while what the Horn of Winter actually does is still unclear, it is the thematic mirror of its fiery opposite, Dragonbinder. The Horn of Winter can, depending on the source, raise giants, bring down the wall, or possess other magical capabilities. All of these abilities have a common thread: ice magic. Some form of ice magic or manipulation is controlling ice-based mythical beasts, just like how Dragonbinder is fire-based, burning those who use it, and can be used to command fire-based mythical creatures, supposedly. There is one other mythical creature which is linked to snow, at least thematically, and this is the White Raven. White ravens are used to communicate the turning of the seasons, not just winter, all four of them, and seem to be more intelligent than regular ravens. They are not merely albino ravens, which also may supposedly exist in ASOIAF, but a fictional species in the world of ice and fire. However, I was unable to find any links between them and ice magic, so their connection seems pure in-universe and more thematic. Still an interesting thing to note, though. The children of the forest are in some ways tied to ice magic as well, though they are certainly not in league with the Great Other. The children of the forest focus on life and nature, which would be favored by summer and is contrary to the Great Other's spread of death and winter. Some of the magic systems appear to be tied to ice magic, but I do not think this is a direct link, merely that they have found allies in wargs, weirwoods, and other greenseers. The theory that the children of the forest created the others would line up with the idea that they practice ice magic, but I personally find that theory unlikely. Lastly, there are a few plants linked with ice magic worth mentioning. Weirwoods are the obvious connection, as their power and frequency increases as one travels north. While the full power and extent of the weirwood network is presently unknown, though it is hinted here and there that some very powerful warging and time travel abilities are present, it is clear that they are tied with the systems of magic we see used by ice magic, namely warging, the raising of the dead in the form of cold hands and also Bloodraven, and visions of the past and future. Blue winter roses also appear throughout our story on many occasions. They are heavily linked to Lyanna Stark, and Dany glimpses one during a vision in the House of the Undying. Blue winter roses are supposedly the most beautiful flowers that the Starks grow. Bale the Bard mockingly leaves one behind when he runs away with Brandon's virgin daughter, and Rhaegar similarly shockingly chooses to give blue winter roses to the virgin Lyanna, eventually kidnapping her several years later. The blue winter rose Dany sees growing through the crack in the wall is interesting, and while many take it as evidence for R+L=J, I am not entirely convinced. What a chink in the wall really means, as well as what it means that the blue winter rose grows through it and fills the air with sweetness, is as of yet to be seen. My theory that it means the wall or its mission will fail because of some tempting or seemingly good idea, and whatever that idea is, it will have stemmed from ice magic. But this isn't really an evidence-based theory, as we do not have any direct links with blue winter roses to ice magic, only thematic ones. More likely the vision has a simpler explanation, such as something to do with Jon, as many people suspect. So given this understanding of fire and ice, we can see that all throughout Planetos, the Great Other and some embodiment of R'hllor are combating each other, fire and magic engaged in a waltz of seasons and dominion. The two may be Lovecraftian gods, or merely themes and concepts with their own magic systems, always opposed and never in balance. The ice side, led by the Great Other, a god of death, darkness, and snow, commands ice magic, is a magic of cold, proliferation, vision, and death, which the others use to animate whites, and the wall uses to defend itself. Ice dragons and ice spiders are constructs made of living ice that has magically been imbued with sentience. Ice magic also extends into warging, greenseers, the ability to grant visions, the weirwoods, and perhaps even the Horn of Winter, as well as the magical lives of dire wolves, giants, and perhaps even the children of the forest. The fire side runs contrary, and, well, for the fire side of this equation, you will need to watch the next part in this series on cryptids and ASOIAF, where I will cover dragons, fireworms, R'hllor, wyverns, basilisks, and many other great creatures, as well as the other sentient magical force which drives the song. Please consider subscribing, by the way. I'm a very small content creator with under 500 subscribers, so each sub really does provide a significant boost to the channel. This video is actually 5th on a series on magical beasts in ASOIAF, so if you haven't yet, I encourage you to check out all the other videos. I go over unicorns, fire lions, Lovecraftian gods, and mermaids, as well as many other magical beasts which are real, and will each impact the winds of winter in unique and awesome ways. Anyway, it is statistically likely that when you are watching this video, the second part, the video on fire magic, is already out. But if it is not, congratulations for being here first, and it should be within the next few days. This video was supposed to be just a video on ice-based monsters and ASOIAF, but the more research I did, the more I found, and I eventually realized that the magical properties of ice much like fire, carry great significance in our story, and this video turned more into a theory of everything, talking about the seasons and overall battle between ice and fire, and how this two-part song defines all aspects of the story. If you have any feedback or anything on your mind, please comment below. The channel is small enough that I can reply to every comment, at least read them all, anyway. That's all for today. Do take care, and I will see you all next time.